Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to try something a little bit different, and many of you have probably seen this tag or something going around in the online community on the Instagrams, on the YouTubes, and the whatevers, and that's people responding to assumptions about them. And usually the people who have created these videos are people who are actually well-known online, not necessarily someone like me. But truth be told, I didn't really have the confidence to have people make assumptions about me because people on the internet can be really freaking cruel, and I just didn't want to subject myself to that. So instead, I asked my Instagram followers to let me know their assumptions about my Pitbull. I wanted people to ask if they had any assumptions about Hogan, who is a Pitbull mix, and he has appeared frequently on my Instagram, so he's kind of like a mini celebrity. No, that's a little bit of exaggeration, but you know what I mean. I was also curious to see if people really did have stereotypes about pit bulls, just the breed in general. My Instagram followers are actually pretty nice, so I didn't really get a whole lot of mean questions or mean comments or anything or assumptions. So I'm definitely going to talk about some of the myths and stereotypes about pit bulls in general and questions and assumptions people made about Hogan. Now you're probably asking, what does this have to do with writing and books? And the answer is nothing. I want my YouTube platform to be more than just writing and books. I want to talk about other things that are important to me and as sort of like a lifestyle or just sort of in general. And animal rights and the environment are two of those things. And there's a reason that nature and animals often appear in my writing and books is because they're things that are really important to me and things that I felt really close with. As a kid, I was very shy and I honestly didn't relate to other people very well, but I always related to animals and I felt more peaceful alone in nature than I ever did with people. And of course, now that I am a pit bull owner, I definitely wanted to address some of the stereotypes and assumptions that people have about the breed because it is one of many breeds that is considered controversial and has often been banned in cities or even certain countries and in apartments and stuff like that. So some of the common stereotypes I hear about pit bulls, some of these I did look up online just to see how popular they were, but one of them is that all pit bulls are super aggressive. And obviously that's complete bullshit because any dog breed can be aggressive, just like any dog breed can be really docile and timid or kind. It really is about how you raise them, not just the breed. This might sound a little weird, but I honestly think that judging a dog based on its breed is kind of like being racist. You're literally just assuming that because of this dog's certain genetic makeup, they are or are not one thing or another. When it comes down to it, training and how they're brought up has a lot more influence on their personality than just their breed. However, I will acknowledge that certain breeds are bred for certain things, and pit bulls, unfortunately, have often been bred to be aggressive and to fight. And one of the biggest reasons that they are fairly easy to train in that way is because pit bulls are really known for their determination. And this can be used in a negative way, such as fighting, or in a positive way. And another common thing about pit bulls is that they can lock their jaws. Okay, no dog can lock their jaws. That's not a thing. It's just that some dogs have more powerful bites than other dogs. And one thing that I found, I don't exactly remember which website I found it on or video or something, but there's this muscle that's sort of in the upper part of their jaw towards the back of their head that in pit bulls tends to be very large and well developed, especially if they've been bred to be very muscly. So a lot of times they have this big jaw muscle or whatever in their head that's really strong, so obviously they're going to chew or be able to bite very strong compared to, a Chihuahua or something like that. So I don't want to sit here and rant and rave about all these stupid stereotypes that we come up with. I'm going to instead try to focus on some of the assumptions that people have sent to me when I ask the question. I'm going to pull them up on my phone. Some of these were also questions, so I'm going to answer those too as I go along. Someone asked, is he friendly to most people? And I can see why some people would think that he's not, because, it is that stereotype that pit bulls are very protective and they're mean and they can be unsociable, and there's actually a lot of dog breeds that are like that. But the thing is, Hogan is friendly to literally everyone he meets. There have been very few exceptions. I think he does have a bit of a protective tendency because if someone knocks on the door, he will start barking like crazy. He's very big on alerting us to when someone is around. But if someone comes over, or if we bring him to someone's house, or if we're just meeting someone on the street, he just assumes that that person is his new best friend. Like, he's friendly to every person that he meets. I've seen him be a little bit wary of a couple strangers, which to me, I would probably trust his instinct, but I've never seen him be aggressive towards a person, and any time that we've let someone in the house, his first instinct is to kind of check them out, sniff them over. Maybe he'll be a little wary, but then within like seconds, he runs and finds a toy because he wants them to play. So yes, he is very friendly. Someone said, my assumption is Hogan is a good boy who loves his naps, lol. And I can understand why people would think that also, because anytime, I think just about any time I put him on Instagram, he's sleeping. And part of the reason for that is that Hogan is happiest when his pack is complete. So when I say his pack, I pretty much just mean me, my husband, and the dog. When one of us is away, he pretty much just mopes and just lays around until the other one comes back. And then when all of us are together, he is the happiest, most energetic dog I've ever seen. And I feel like some people might assume that he's lazy because I only show him when he's sleeping. The truth of the matter is that a lot of pit bulls tend to be very high energy. And this could be a stereotype about the breed, but from what I've read, most experts agree that pit bulls are a very high energy breed that requires a lot of exercise. They're often considered a breed that's better for experienced dog owners because of their energy requirements and probably because of some of the, bad press they get. So you need someone who knows how to handle a dog well and can kind of teach them to put their energy towards better things rather than having bad habits. I just sort of ranted on that one. Someone said, I feel like he takes food from you really slowly. Shall we experiment and see? Hogan, quit licking yourself. Hello, Bebe. Would you like a treat? Would you like a treat? You see, we have a very small treat and a very big mouth. Are you ready? Gentle. Gentle. Very gentle. Good boy. So as you can see, yes, Hogan can take food very slowly and very gently, but when he's really hyper and high energy, he sometimes will be a little bit more grabby. But we've trained him against that. I think when we first got him, he never bit us, but he would tend to chomp at things, kind of like a shark. And I've known some dogs who are like that, and they never really understand gentle. But the thing about Hogan and a lot of pit bulls is they're really intelligent dogs, and they're highly trainable. So it didn't take long for us to teach him gentle. And when I say that to him, he usually understands that I want him to take the treat very carefully. Someone said, he looks like he takes up the whole human bed. Yeah, he tries to. So we often don't sleep with him on the bed, at least during the week, because he tends to try to sprawl out. And the thing is that I have this instinct where if I feel something against me while I'm sleeping, I automatically try to move away from it so I don't crush it, I guess. But David's instinct when he is sleeping is that if something is pushing against him and it's annoying, he will just push right back. So if the three of us are sleeping on the bed together, I'm usually the one hanging off the end while David is taking up at least half of the bed, and then Hogan is sort of in the middle also pushing me off. So yeah, he tries to take up the whole human bed, but there's no but, he tries. But most of the time he sleeps in his own bed because if he sleeps in the bed with us, I usually don't get very good sleep. Okay, this next one. He seems like he loves listening to AC/DC. What do you think? Okay, I don't want to get flagged for copyright, so, Highway to hell! Fuck. Highway to hell! I'm on... He likes it. Just take my word for it. I got a dog hair in my mouth. So this one's a no-brainer. Of course Hogan likes AC/DC. Me and David are both metalheads, so there's no way that our child is not going to like rock and metal. And if he didn't, then he's probably adopted. So, yeah. Someone asked, what do you think of the Pitbull Stereotypes? And I pretty much already mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but I think Pitbull Stereotypes are like any kind of stereotype. Yes, they are set in some amount of truth, but they're stereotypes. That doesn't mean it's the be-all, end-all for every pit bull. Just like every dog breed doesn't necessarily match all of its stereotypes any more than any person or any race or any gender matches all of their stereotypes. I wouldn't want anyone to assume that I'm trying to say that a dog breed that's been bred for certain uses isn't going to have the traits that have been bred into it. However, a dog is way more than its breed, just like a human is way more than their race or any other factor you can use to describe them. I think people will be much better dog owners and just people living around dogs in general if they understand that a dog is an animal first, then a dog, then its breed. It's more important how it's raised and how it's treated and stuff like that rather than just what its breed is. Someone says, my assumption is that he's your well-loved buddy. And yes, he is very well-loved. David and I are by no means perfect dog owners because that doesn't exist any more than there's such a thing as a perfect parent. But I like to think that we try a lot harder than the average dog owner. We don't overly spoil our dog. We appropriately discipline him. We make sure he gets plenty of exercise. He gets walked 3 times a day. We set up rules and boundaries for him fairly quickly. We were extremely lucky to get this dog because he already knew some basic commands when we got him, but he was also extremely well behaved. I don't know how he arrived to the shelter when we were looking for a dog because there was really no background on him, but I'd like to think that whoever had him previously was really good to him because, like I said, he did know some commands. And it really didn't take long for him to understand boundaries. Like, once we tell him that something does or doesn't belong to him, he understands. If we tell him that he can or cannot be in a certain room, then he understands. Like, he will stay outside of a kitchen if we tell him to get out, and he will learn what that boundary is. And I could just go on for a while about all the bad habits that I see from other dog owners in my neighborhood and other places where I've lived. But that is an entirely different video for another day. I don't want to ramble on and rant about that forever. So we'll just skip that part for now. But yeah, like I think we do a pretty good job of taking care of him, and other people can tell. Like, he's a very happy dog. He seems very content most of the time. The only time he really like acts up is when he gets really hyper. Sometimes he's in certain situations where there's just a lot of people and a lot of other activity, and he just doesn't really listen because he's just so excited to be around everything. Between the 3 of us, he is the most extroverted part of this pack, whereas me and David are both, I'm extremely introverted. David's somewhere in the middle, but he does lean towards introvert rather than extrovert, but our dog is like the social butterfly of the 3 of us. And anytime that we take him to a groomer or something, we take him to get his nails trimmed at least every 2 weeks because they grow really fast. And any dog groomer that he's seen absolutely loves him, and they remember him as this really easy to deal with dog. And once he's done, he's happy as can be, and he loves going back to see them. Like, I love that dog. So someone actually did respond that their initial assumption about Pitbulls is that all Pitbulls were savage fighting dogs bred for one purpose. I was very wrong. And then I did message her to figure out if she really did feel like that and what made her change her mind and stuff like that. And she basically said that the place where she went to middle school was a country that basically taught everyone that Pitbulls are just fighting dogs. And this is part of the problem with the whole Pitbull stereotype, is that we keep trying to make this particular breed out to be some evil thing just based on the activities of a group of awful people. The same thing has happened to German Shepherds, Dobermans, Rottweilers. Like, there are tons of banned breeds because of a few bad eggs. And in most cases, it's because of humans. It's not really the dog's fault or even the breed's fault. It's generally humans that are sticking their noses where it doesn't belong and turning good dogs into assholes. And I was really glad that after she had spent time with some of the rescue dogs, that she realized that these dogs are really good. They just have been used inappropriately by humans for human selfishness and gain. So I was really glad that she had this really bad image of Pitbulls, but then changed her mind because she was one of the people that realized that a dog is a dog. It's not necessarily its breed, and it's not an entire breed's fault that humans don't always treat them well. So I believe those were all of the questions and assumptions that were sent to me, and like I said, I don't want to just rant and ramble on about the injustice of how Pitbulls and dogs are treated, because when it comes right down to it, a dog is a dog, And the way a dog behaves is generally a reflection of how humans have treated it. And there are plenty of dogs that have been unable to be rehabilitated because they were just so badly mistreated by humans. But there's also some dogs that have come from the worst of conditions and turn out to be great pets because people gave them a second chance. And I realized that I never really talked about how we got Hogan, so let me see if I can do that relatively quickly. We adopted him, I believe, in 2016, I think, from the Humane Society in San Diego. We had been wanting a dog for quite some time, had talked about it for months, and the person whose house we lived in at the time was fine with it as long as we got a dog that was no bigger than 60 pounds and got along with his dogs. Those were the only criteria, and so that's what we went to that's what we went to the shelter with. Now, we looked at a bunch of dogs, and we actually ended up meeting 2 of them. And the funny thing is that the thing that stuck out to me about Hogan was he was actually one of the few dogs that wasn't barking or jumping or being all crazy and excited and reactive at the cages. Like, he was just laying there on the ground looking very cute while all these other dogs were just jumping around and barking and being all crazy around him, and there were so many people walking through, but he just didn't really seem fazed by it. I remember, looking at him and seeing those big hanging jowls and thinking, damn, he's kind of ugly. But in like a cute kind of way, like the same way pugs are like ugly and cute. And we put our hand up to the cage, kind of like this so he could sniff, and he just kind of sniffed us and was like, cool, you're a human. Yep, I'm a dog. Nice to meet you. And so I just wrote his name on my hand, and then we met him and a different pit bull who was much bigger. She was really, really high energy and clearly didn't have much training or socialization, or she was just so hyper that we knew we couldn't handle her, and she was a lot bigger. So then we met him and hung out with him, and he was super cool. And then we brought our friends, the person who owned the house, we brought one of his kindest and most sociable dogs to meet him, and they got along okay. She didn't really like him. She didn't want to play with him, but she, kind of snipped at him to say, okay, go away, young dog, because he was only 2 when we got him, so he was still pretty young. And Hogan was really respectful of what she wanted. So within like a couple hours, we decided that we were going to take him home, and it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. He came into my life at a very difficult time. We had a very significant loss in the family only about 2 weeks prior to getting him, but me and David had already discussed getting a dog, so I didn't really want to go back on it. And then we got him, and I was still mourning and just really not in a good place. And there were times I thought, man, dogs are so much more work than cats. I grew up with 2 cats who both lived to be 15 years old, so that was really my thing. I think cats are still a little bit more my personality, but getting him was a huge help in helping me deal with the mourning period. I remember I didn't want to leave the house for quite some time. I didn't go to work for 2 weeks because I was just so overcome with grief. But the thing about having a dog is it really does force you to get out of bed and to get out and do things. So it was really my duty as a dog owner, because I was never going to get an animal and then be a lousy animal pet owner. So it was my duty that sort of forced me to get up and do things that I didn't feel mentally well enough to do. And it worked. He didn't cure me of sadness, but he definitely gave me a reason to go out and do things. And he still does that. There's plenty of days that I don't want to leave the house. I'm too anxious. I don't want to do this or do that, or maybe my depression is getting bad, but I have to walk him. I have to take care of him. I have to do this, have to do that. I have to make sure that he is well taken care of, and I don't want him to just lay around and be lazy and look kind of depressing. So I don't want to sit here and, talk too much about this with violins playing in the background or whatever, but I had a lot of fun answering these questions and reacting to some of these assumptions. And like I said, I'm very grateful every single day that Hogan is in my life, and I'm really glad that he's not a stereotypical pit bull. Some people look at him and, I don't know if they're kind of leery about seeing that he's obviously a pit bull mix and that makes them uncomfortable, or sometimes people will look at him and I can tell they just don't want to be around a dog. I mean, maybe they don't like dogs and that's fine, but It makes me feel really good anytime I'm out walking him and people just see a happy dog. He looks at them and he's wagging his tail and being all prancy, and they just think he's the cutest damn thing they've ever seen. And a lot of people will ask if he's a pit bull, and they say that they love pit bulls and that the stereotypes are bullshit, and they would hope more people would get over that. They also comment on his coloring and say he's so beautiful. I don't think the lighting was good enough for you guys to tell, but he is a brindle dog, and in the sunlight his fur looks very red, so he looks very like red brown, and he has the black stripes, so he's a very handsome boy. And I don't think I mentioned it, but they listed him as a Pitbull Shar-Pei mix at the shelter, but to be honest, I don't really think he's Shar-Pei. He does have, you know, the wrinkly forehead, and he has a lot of skin on the back of his neck that kind of looks like the kind of skin that Shar-Peis have, but they're much more ugly. But they're much more like wrinkly, and I don't really see it, but he could be. I honestly think it's more likely that he's a Pitbull boxer mix. It would be interesting to try one of those DNA kits, those dog DNA kits, and see exactly what he is. But it is very obvious that he's a Pitbull mix. If anyone is wondering, we didn't go to the shelter looking for a pit bull. We honestly didn't care what breed we got. But yeah, would I have gotten a pit bull? I mean, there's so many pit bulls in the shelter and pit mixes that it would be hard not to get one, I think, sometimes. I've seen some shelters where you can tell they're just full of pit mixes, and a lot of times they will make sure that they point out that it's a mix, and they'll try to guess what it's mixed with, because they know that if someone sees pit bull, they probably won't want to adopt the dog. I actually saw this one shelter when we were looking for dogs before we adopted him that listed things as like a lab mix, but then you saw the picture and you're like, it's a lab pit bull mix, but they just didn't want to put pit bull. Like, I could tell it was like a marketing thing for them. But anyway, I'm getting into a ramble. I could talk about my dog all day. He's like my child. I mean, yeah, he's part of the family. I definitely think of him as part of the pack. I don't think of him as a baby, but of course I call him my child sometimes, just jokingly, because he is family and he should be treated as such. I would easily do the same thing about my cats, but unfortunately they are no longer living, so I just have to ramble about my dog. So before I get too far into any more rambly shit, I'm going to sign off for now. Like I said, I enjoyed talking about Pitbull assumptions and assumptions about my dog. If you have a dog, give this video a like. If you like pit bulls, also give this video a like. Comment below what kind of dog you have or what kind of pet you have, because I am a bona fide animal lover. I don't discriminate against the types of animals that I like, except hornets. I hate hornets. They can die. So if you have a pet hornet, no, you can't hang with me. You can't sit with us. If you'd like to see more photos and stuff about Hogan, I definitely recommend following me on Instagram. I will leave that and my other social media links down in the description. So until next time, see ya! Hokey dokey, hokey dog. You wanna be in my thumbnail? It's so dark in here, baby. I have something for you. You pose with mommy? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Up. Sit. Ugh. Trying to get a thumbnail with a dog. Gentle. Gentle. It's right there. It's right there. Good boy. Kisses?